14 to 17 years old, I went and worked for Jeffrey.
I was 16 years old.
I was only 14 years old.
I was a 16-year-old.
I was only 14 years old when I was introduced to Jeffrey Epstein by a 13-year-old friend of mine.
Victims of Jeffrey Epstein on Capitol Hill this morning, bravely recounting their abuse at the hands of the disgraced financier and his accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, and urging lawmakers to fully release the Epstein files. Just minutes after that, President Trump, sitting in the Oval Office, called the push to release all the documents relating to the Epstein files, a, quote, Democrat hoax that never ends. Joining us now is Gloria Allred. She's a longtime victims' rights attorney. She's represented 27 survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and some alleged victims of Ghislaine Maxwell. Gloria, thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for inviting me.
You have seen, unfortunately, so many women in this kind of a position with powerful men. Mm-hmm. This has been going on for years. You have been involved with it for years. And yet, it seems like there is something about it that is changing right now, what those women did today.
I agree with you, Casey. And I spoke at the rally at the end, the pre-rally to the other rally, and there were many victims, survivors there. And so I think the change that you're keynoting here, that you're focusing on is, you know, the first stage is being a victim, then becoming a survivor. And then I say the last stage, the highest stage, is a fighter for change. So I see a lot of the victims evolving to that third stage, fighting for change. In other words, they've told their story. I think the public has clearly said in all the polls, Democratic, Republican, and the independent polls, they want the files to be released. And the victims are willing to fight for it. They have been delayed justice so many times. They were delayed when my client Alicia Arden filed the first documented police report in 1997, alleging inappropriate conduct by Jeffrey Epstein. And then after that, in Florida, we know what happened with Alex Acosta, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida, and somehow a sweetheart deal was made without consulting many of the victims. And Jeffrey Epstein ended up being able to serve his 13 months by going to his office every day and just sleeping in the jail at night. That's outrageous. And then, of course, in New York, when Jeffrey Epstein died, either whether it's suicide, homicide, right now, they were denied justice because there was no trial. They didn't get to confront him, the sexual predator, in a court of law. They were denied justice then. So what about some element, some measure of justice right now? And that is what Congress can help do. They'd like to know the truth. They know their own truth. They don't know the whole picture. And we need to find out from the release of all the files, not having it cherry picked, not having certain names redacted that are not the victims. They want the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. I think that's fair for them to want that. They have to fight for it. I think we as victims' attorneys are tired of like victims being patted on the head in a paternalistic way by certain elected officials. Oh, we're so sorry. What can we do? Okay, there's something they can do. They can do it now. They should have done it yesterday. That's what they're seeking, and that's what they have to fight for, because no one's going to give it to them if they don't fight for it.
Fighting for it, obviously, you're taking on a risk, right? Going out in public. And one of the survivors today talked about how she feels intimidated, that she was threatened. I want to play that and we'll talk about it. Take a look.
I have been threatened. I was threatened by phone. My daughter was threatened. I have been followed. I have been stalked. I have been followed not only by journalists, but by people who do not get out of the car and do not try and talk to me and just drive behind me as I drive my daughter to school. So the fear is very real for us.
What does what the president did today in the face of this from the victims, where he said it's all a hoax, what does that do in terms of ratcheting up the potential for threats?
Well, it's salt in the wound that they already have, the trauma they've experienced from the initial victimization. Now they're being victimized again. The really name calling is not going to be a substitute for release of the files, all the files, not just the ones that someone higher up says, okay, these are okay to release, all of them. But I'm focused not on what the men do, frankly, but what the victims are going to do, the survivors, the fighters for change. We have to make this happen. It can't just be a press conference and then it goes away. It has to be a constant drumbeat. I think people all over the country can help. There are so many people all over the country who have been victimized by child sexual abuse when they were children. They never got any justice. Now they want to help the Epstein victims and survivors. They want to help those who were victims of Ms. Maxwell. And this is their opportunity to do it by letting their elected officials know they're going to make the elected officials accountable if they don't make any third parties whose names are in these files accountable. So this has to be power to the people, so to speak, to make these elected officials do what the right thing is. And I think the elected officials know. It's just that, there may be others telling them that maybe politically they shouldn't do it. They'd have to pay a price. What you just showed is a victim paying the price for speaking out. You know what? If the elected officials don't do the right thing, they should pay a price. The price should be they're not going to get elected next time.
All right, Gloria Allred, thank you very much for spending some time with us today.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Come back soon.